Alright guys, welcome to the Wrestling Angle. I am Chad Z, and we just ended Wrestlemania Night 2. Not gonna lie, show was a little bit of a disappointment. Even with last night's botches, with Mandy Rose slipping. There was a lot more stuff that I didn't catch that I was watching today. And most of it took place during that women's match. It was a better night. Night 1 was better than night 2. So we're going to go match by match. And I encourage you to join in the conversation. Check me out on twitch.tv/thewrestlingangle1 and join in the chat. And let's talk some wrestling. So, there was rumors going around that rain was going to affect tonight's show too, and that didn't happen. So the rain just stopped right before the show started. So they didn't have to contend with the rain. I'm wondering if the rain had happened, if it would have been a better show. But a lot of confusing storylines, a lot of confusing title changes, and obviously my comment last night about me booking the show was completely way off the mark with tonight. So, show started off. The first match was Randy Orton versus The Fiend. Randy Orton ended up winning this match. Really cool entrance by Bray Wyatt with the Jack in the Box and then being underneath the stage. We had one question answered, and that was, where do we go from here? And Bray Wyatt is back to his old Fiend costume. So, somewhere along the line, Bray Wyatt has magical powers, and he can transform himself back into what he was. So, this is one of the things that I don't like about wrestling, is the fact that, you know, it's considered entertainment, and, you know, Vince has changed his views on wrestling over the years, and it's all about creating a show for the fans. And me being a traditional wrestling fan, this is the type of stuff I don't like. I don't mind, I don't mind the stuff like The Undertaker used to do, because that was a different time. That was the Attitude Era. And even before the Attitude Era, he was doing some pretty cool stuff. But this is where I feel like Vince thinks the fans are stupid. And there's me using that word stupid. I shouldn't use the word stupid, I should use the word dumb. But you know, it was a really cool entrance. The Fiend is back to the way he was. And then the ending was a little confusing to me. You know, we had Alexa Bliss pop out of the Jack in the Box, which stayed at ringside the whole entire time. So it basically cut off half the ring that they could use. And they couldn't go to ringside on that side anyways. But Alexa popped out, and then she had all this, it looked like she had black blood coming down from her head. And I don't know if she had something that she was pumping or whatever it was, but it wouldn't stop flowing. And the effect was cool, but it just didn't make any sense. You know, is Alexa going back to the way she was? Is she gonna backpedal and go back to the Alexa Bliss character? I don't know. It just totally confuses me, and I expected the match to be a cinematic match, and that's not what took place. They never officially came out and said it was going to be a cinematic match, but it ended up being a regular match, and Alexa basically distracted the Fiend, and Randy Orton wins. So, what happens now with the Fiend? What happens now with Alexa? Where does Randy Orton go? Do we find out on Raw? Probably not, because they probably won't explain it right. But anyways, to have a match like that start off the show and it be a complete dud really sets the tempo for the show. And I just shook my head after that. Next up, we got the women's tag title match. So Natalya and Tamina Snuka versus Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. This was another. There was a part in the match. I walked away for a little bit because I was looking for something, but I kept poking my head in and out. There was a part in this match when Nia Jax looked like she was shooting against Tamina. And, basically said she was sick of her shit. And she says she's the head bitch and all that type of stuff. That type of stuff doesn't need to be. I mean, I'm not a big Nia Jax fan. I went on record saying that. But that type of crap doesn't need to be taking place, and basically ruined what could be a good women's match, tag title match, and it was overshadowed by Nia Jax doing what she does best, and that's being a bully. And Shayna Baszler is not any better, so. Anyways, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler ended up winning that match. I wasn't impressed with that match either. As you're gonna see as we go through the show, every match on this card had the potential to steal the show, and not one of them will I walk away from Wrestlemania this year, night 2 anyways, saying to myself, this match stole the show, because it just didn't happen. And it is what it is. It's WWE. The way they book things is just goofy. It just doesn't make sense. Next match was Sami Zayn with Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens. And, this is probably the only match that I really enjoyed on the show. Because I knew that I know the track record of these two guys. I've seen them wrestle in person against each other. And they, and plus they're best friends in real life. So they have tremendous chemistry. Hey, I'm going to welcome in Killer Clown. What's going on, buddy?
Hello. It's
John C.
Feel free to jump in the chat and tell me what you thought about WrestleMania. So this match had the potential to steal the show, and it's probably the match that came the closest. And that's I'm not too happy either. So this, these guys have tremendous chemistry together, and meaning Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And Logan Paul, whatever. He was out there for no reason but to take a stunner from Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens ended up winning this match. Sami Zayn put up a good fight. It was a pretty good match, but once again, it's overshadowed by having a celebrity in there that was not even needed, because he did nothing during the match other than take a stunner at the end. And, so it's another match that had the potential to steal the show. And, I'll get to that. I just want to say Riddle got his head kicked off his body. Yeah, I'll get to that after. I'm not too happy about that match, I can tell you that much. But I can see where they're going with Riddle, and I'll talk about that once I get to the match. Um, Next up, we get the United States title match, Riddle versus Sheamus. This was actually a pretty decent match. Another match that had the potential to steal the show, and yet it didn't. Sheamus ended up winning the United States title, and here's why I think. I think Vince is in total love with Matt Riddle, and he likes his character, and I think he's going to push him towards the heavyweight or the WWE title against Lashley. So that's why I think Sheamus won this match. They were also out there kicking the hell out of each other too. I mean, Sheamus loves to get hit. He's stated that in interviews in the past. And Riddle's a former UFC fighter, and he really likes to put his body on the line. So, you know, Riddle took some pretty bad kicks to the head. Sheamus took some bad kicks too, but didn't seem to really affect him all that much. You know what? Going back to the Fiend, I just thought about something. And going back to the Fiend match against Randy Orton, the other thing I didn't like was that the Fiend was no-selling. He no-selled a powerbomb on the table, and and I didn't like that. So, if you guys hear my dog's clanging here in the background, so if you hear his chain or his tags jingling, that's who it is. So, hopefully he just lays down. Go lay down, Finny. So Sheamus ended up winning that match. Go lay down. Like I said, another match that had the possibility to steal the show, and it didn't. And a very confusing win by Sheamus, with other than it being that he is going to be going up against Bobby Lashley next and rekindle their feud. The only problem I have with that is they were in that feud for a good part of last year. And, to start it back up so soon, it just doesn't make any sense. So, next up, we get the Nigerian drum fight for the Intercontinental title match. Here's another confusing win. Apollo Crews ended up winning the Intercontinental title with help from the guy that appeared in the whatever Shane McMahon's thing was called. I can't remember what it was. Logan, do you remember what it was called? Anyways, the guy's name is Dabba-Kato. He's big, huge. He looks Samoan. But here's another thing. He came out dressed in this goofy soldier outfit. White pants with a green army jacket. Why not have him come out dressed like he was when he fought in the Shane McMahon thing? It's just disappointing. You know what I mean? Like, this is the reason why, they had the opportunity to capitalize from night one, and they just blew it. And not to mention that, be nice. Yeah, I want to welcome in Husky Hero. What's going on, bud?
Hello. It's
John C.
Just remember, I invited you to come on this show, so you could have counteracted me being negative. Anyways, yeah. So I mean, um, they debuted Dabba-Kato, and he just came out looking goofy. Whatever. Yeah, I know. No big deal. Um, so Apollo Crews ended up winning the Intercontinental title. I guess the only thing that I can say is the Nigerian drum fight was a no disqualification match. Um, the props that they had on the outside, they had kendo sticks, and they had cymbals or drum, whatever they call those things, the drum gong. That's what I think. That's what I think it's called. They had the gongs on the outside. They had drums. None of that stuff was used, other than the gong got used or got knocked off its thing. But this was meant to get Dabba-Kato out there, and he's going to be the heater for Apollo Crews, whatever. Um, and that's the other thing too. We haven't seen this guy since he. Gary, do you remember what the name of the Shane McMahon thing was? I couldn't remember the name of it. Raw Underground, maybe. I think that might be what it was. But we haven't seen this guy since the Raw Underground, and you know, I mean yeah, Raw Underground. That's what I thought. I couldn't think of it earlier, and I asked Logan, and he couldn't remember either. So I figured you'd remember. Um, so we haven't seen the guy since Raw Underground. I figured he would have been sent down to NXT or whatever. Obviously, he's been performing or training down in the PC, whatever. The one thing too, before I go past this match, there was a thing done in the back with Riddle, Rob Van Dam, and the Great Khali. And Rob Van Dam handed out his Rob Van Dam rolling papers, which I thought was really funny. Obviously, Rob Van Dam is a well-known weed smoker, and so is Riddle. And I would imagine Great Khali is too. But I was really surprised to see Great Khali there because he wasn't there for the Hall of Fame ceremony. But the Hall of Fame ceremony actually took place 2 weeks ago, so maybe they couldn't fly him in. He had something going on over in his home country, but that was a real funny thing that they did with the RVD rolling papers. So, so that going back, they brought out the Hall of Famers, which was really cool. I was surprised that Great Khali was there. They had Kane. Kane obviously was the main event for the Hall of Fame, and so it was really cool seeing all of them. It's cool seeing Bischoff too. Bischoff had a segment in the back with Bailey and Titus O'Neil and Hulk Hogan. So that was kind of cool. The other goofy thing is that Titus O'Neil and Hogan came out dressed as pirates at the beginning of the show, which I thought was kind of goofy. But I guess it fit with the theme. Why didn't they do that the night before? Probably because it was raining. So, they did let's see if it's after this match. Yeah, okay. So next up, we got the Rhea Ripley versus Asuka match. Um, this is another match that had the potential. Yeah, it was a waste. It really was a waste having hosts, because they only did a couple segments. And was it me or the night before? Yeah, I talked about that. Um, that Titus really looked like he was uncomfortable the night before being on stage with Hogan. And you know what? Considering what Hulk Hogan has said in the past with his racist comments, I don't blame him. He's apologized for it, and obviously, um, the one person that didn't accept Hogan's apology was Mark Henry. Hey, I want to thank Franchise with that raid. I appreciate it, buddy. How you doing tonight? Thanks for joining the Wrestling Angle. Welcome in, guys.
Hello. It's
John C.
That's good to hear. So we got Rhea Ripley versus Asuka. And I'm going to get off the Titus O'Neil thing because I don't want to get into talking about racism and all that stuff. What Hogan has done is in the past. There's people out there that, yeah, he is kind of outdated. Every time they bring those legends back, even Ric Flair to a point, Ric Flair is my favorite wrestler, but, even he's outdated. Are we going to see him back on the show when Charlotte comes back? And you know what? There was no reason why she couldn't have been on that show tonight, too. Because she doesn't have COVID. Because she's been posting all over Instagram that, yeah, go ahead, Logan. You can say what you want about Bad Bunny. Just be nice. There was no reason why Charlotte couldn't have been on that match. So she doesn't have COVID. She's actually been vacationing with Andrade. So Rhea Ripley versus Asuka. I'm gonna go as far as to say probably this was the best match of the night. And I'm gonna use that term very loosely. Rhea Ripley came out. She had somebody play her to the ring. Yeah, it was a pretty good Canadian Destroyer on Morrison. Um, I said last night that Bad Bunny did a lot better than I thought he was going to do, and does he? Actually, Randy Orton actually tweeted out today that he thinks Bad Bunny is now a WWE superstar. I wouldn't go that far. But they did a thing. They did a vignette where Triple H gave him a case with a microphone in it with the Triple H skull on it, and he said, "Now you go do what you do." And he's got a tour coming up in 2022. So hopefully he goes away for a little bit, and they bring him back when the time is right. But is there really a time that's right for any celebrity to be in wrestling? I don't think there is. Yeah, Orton said that, and he did well. He did well during the match, but I wouldn't go as far as saying he was a WWE superstar. And you know what, too? I found out something very interesting today on one of my news sites, and that is that Damian Priest was suffering from a shoulder injury. That's why Bad Bunny was in the match most of the time. And he actually, when he hit the ropes, Bad Bunny hit the ropes, he knocked himself out for a couple minutes. That's why Miz went over to Priest during that match and started egging him on. So just to give Bad Bunny some more time to recuperate or whatever. So Franchise says, I haven't been happy with wrestling pay-per-view for WWE in a long, long time. I honestly think the pay-per-views aren't good anymore as far as the main events being weak over the years. Yeah, I have to agree with that. You know, the last 2 years, well, last year was a little bit different because they were dealing with COVID. I think what they're doing is, I think they're focusing too much on the wrong guys. I think Roman Reigns has been in the spotlight a little bit too long, but you know what? They really don't have anybody that they can bring up from NXT that's ready to be on the main stage. At least the ones that fit the bill for Vince. And that is the big muscular guy, with the exception of Daniel Bryan and Edge. You guys like Bobby Lashley. That's why Lashley is where he's at, because he's the type of guy that Vince likes. You know, that's why Roman Reigns is where he's at, because Roman Reigns is a Vince experiment, and it's finally. Yeah, I want to welcome in Dolph, #1 fan. Welcome in.
Hello. It's
John C.
Yeah, I'd have to say the Cesaro match that was the best match of the two nights, and they got it right. The right person won over, and that was Cesaro. But going back to what I was saying, I just think that there's no guys down in NXT that fit the bill to be on the main roster. I mean, the guys they got down there are like Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong. You know, guys that are indie guys that aren't big guys. When you bring guys like that to the main roster, it's just not going to work, because because Vince just sees that they're a little guy. It's different if Triple H was running the main roster instead of running an NXT. All those guys on NXT would be up on the main roster, because Triple H is a student of the game. You know what I mean? Like he studies wrestling. You know, Cody Rhodes is another one. He studies wrestling. The current storyline right now that he has going on with QT Marshall is a storyline that took place in the 70s between Larry Zbyszko and Bruno Sammartino. So where Larry Zbyszko was the mentor or the student, and Bruno Sammartino was the teacher. So that's why you see most of these guys, why they're always in the main event. And then you got guys that have gone away for a little while, like Edge, Christian. You know, now they're back in wrestling. You know, and Edge got himself right into the main event by winning the Royal Rumble, which is good for him. But even his match tonight, you know, it made no sense. And I'm not saying that because the person that I wanted to win didn't win. It just didn't make any sense. and I'll get to that when I talk about that match. But Rhea Ripley versus Asuka had the potential to. Rhea Ripley had a great entrance. That was pretty cool. She got played to the ring by Ash Costello, who sings the theme song for Rhea Ripley. And no, I don't. I don't think that. So franchise asked, do you think WWE will have a crumble point? For as bad as it is, and they lose fans, etc., going to AEW and New Japan and even AAA wrestling now. No, I don't think that because um, because Vince McMahon is still in charge, and he WWE is always known as they make their stars. Okay, I mean take a look at AEW. Okay, take a look at the top stars in AEW. You got Cody Rhodes, who was in WWE. You got John Moxley, who made a name for himself in WWE. Kenny Omega, who made a name for himself basically in New Japan. He was in WWE for a little bit in developmental, but they didn't have anything for him, so he left. So whether they lose fans or not, I don't see them crumbling. Um, I can tell you this, that I'm still seriously thinking about canceling the Peacock Network because they don't have enough content on there to to satisfy my needs. And I got tons of DVDs that I can watch that that'll work better for me than the WWE Network on Peacock. So I don't think this Peacock thing is going to last. I really don't. Um, it's still the WWE Network everywhere else except for the U.S. And you know. So going back to what you said, franchise. So do I think that they're gonna crumble? No, because you're always gonna have somebody that wants to make it to the WWE because the WWE is every wrestler's dream until they get there and they find out that they won't be used right or they're stuck in NXT, which is still considered the third brand. It's probably the better brand out of them all. Um, but there's always going to be that performer that wants to make it to the WWE. And although AEW seems to be the better place to go right now, WWE is the top tier, and that's where they want to go. So, hopefully that answered your question. You said correct. I'm glad I answered it correctly. And hopefully it made sense. I have a tendency to ramble on about stuff, but to try to get my point across. It drives my wife nuts, too. Um, so Rhea Ripley, she ended up defeating Asuka for the Raw Women's title. So we've got two new women's champions. The tag team champions are still the same. So Rhea Ripley, we have the potential for her to face Becky Lynch, which is another disappointment that I really thought Becky Lynch was going to show up somewhere along the line. But we got her. She can work with Charlotte Flair. I think Asuka's going to go away for a little bit. She's been working with false teeth, and she needs to get her jaw fixed from the kick that she took from Shayna Baszler. But I think she's going to go away for a while. There's a rumor that the Bellas are supposed to be coming back, although by the looks of them tonight, they're not really in good shape. They're still recovering from having babies, which, that's fine, but they're just not in ring shape. They teased a angle with Bailey where the Bellas came out and basically Bailey interrupted Hogan and Titus on the stage, and the Bellas came out. There was a cue that something was going to happen because Bailey was dissing all over the Hall of Famers. So we got the Bellas to come out and take care of Bailey. Do I want the Bellas back? Yeah, you know what? They're a name. Bring them back to the women's division. Let them. I don't want them seeing one in title contention. Maybe come back and put them in the women's tag team titles division. But I don't want to see either one of them winning either the Raw or SmackDown Women's Championships. I just don't want to see them in the title picture. I think that's the one thing that AEW is doing right with someone like Sting. Sting's not being pushed towards the title picture because he doesn't deserve to be in there. Yeah, I would like to see the Bellas versus the Iconics too. They should have never broke up the Iconics. That thing they did last night with Carmella and one of the Iconics, Billy Kay. Here's that name thing again. The fact that it bothers me so bad that I can't remember names, especially when it comes to wrestling. So Billy Kay and Carmella just was an odd pairing, and it came off as a last minute thing, which it was supposed to be, but I would love to see the Iconics get back together. They're not doing anything with Peyton Royce, and they're really not doing anything with Billy Kay either, so that would be kind of cool. So now we come to the main event, which Dave could have put this match anywhere on the card, and I wouldn't have been happy with it. And here's why. Roman Reigns retained the belt. Edge did his concerto stuff. Daniel Bryan did his stuff. Roman Reigns ended up powerbombing Edge onto Daniel Bryan onto Edge, which looked pretty sick. But I know at least one of them got hurt coming out of that. And then he ended up putting Edge over Daniel Bryan and covering both of them. And the only thing that made that a credible win was the fact that Edge had his shoulders down. He had enough sense to make sure his shoulders were down. I guarantee if anybody else had been in that position, they wouldn't have done that. And that's the difference between someone that worked in the Attitude Era and came up through the developmental system compared to these guys that they're just pumping out at NXT. So, it's ring psychology is what it is. But the only thing I can think of is the reason why franchise says one of these times we got to get a group of people and talk about wrestling. I don't know what you used to do to stream, but I use Xbox, but we should think of something one of these days. Yeah, you know what, I can I use Zoom, or not Zoom, To stream, I use Streamlabs OBS, and but when I want to have people on the show, I can use Zoom. So if you can get to a computer that has Zoom, we can do that. Yeah, Jey Uso. First of all, I didn't know that this match was a no disqualification match, and that's not the first time that's happened. It seems like they just threw it in there because I knew something was up when Jey Uso came out with Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman, and he got involved way too much in that match. And I'll tell you what, the DDT that he took on the stairs that Edge gave him looked sick. It looked like he hurt himself pretty bad. It's either that or he's a damn good seller. But he was involved way too much in that match, but that's the heel thing to do. Roman's the heel that came in, and he's the heel champion, so he's gonna have somebody on the outside being his heater, and that's Jey Uso or Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman's not gonna get involved in matches. He's too old to be doing that. And he's stated in the past he won't get involved. He'll do the talking, but he won't get involved. But yeah, Jey Uso was involved way too much into that match, and didn't really give Roman Reigns a credible win. If Jey Uso doesn't interfere, I think Edge wins. Yeah, I really wanted Daniel Bryan to win because I think this was Daniel Bryan's last WrestleMania. I think he's going to go on a farewell tour. I believe his contract is up. I would love to see him go back to Ring of Honor when they start having fans back. He can stay away from AEW. They've got enough guys like him down there, or go to New Japan. But Ring of Honor would probably be his best bet. I would love to see him go on a farewell tour. One of my buddies brought up a good point that he's surprised that Samoa Joe hasn't come back. And Samoa Joe's been hurt, and that's why he's been on commentary. He's been doing a pretty good job on commentary, so they decided to keep him on there. But he needs to come back, But he's proved he's another guy. He's like Taz. Taz proved when he was in WWE that he could go from being a worker to a commentator. And Samoa Joe has done the same thing. The only difference now is Taz doesn't have anybody talking in his ear, and he's just playing goofy. And he says stupid shit on AEW Dark. Matter of fact, I would love to see him get replaced by Big Show. Big Show at least puts the wrestlers over. And I understand that Taz is leading a heel group, and that's great. But your job as a commentator is to get the wrestlers over in the ring, and especially since most of the time, Dark Elevation, and then AEW Dark they're used for the younger talent to get them over. Yeah, Bad News Barrett. He's down in NXT. He's commentating. I believe he had a career-ending injury, so that's why he's not back in the ring. But he had a really good gimmick. The one thing that surprised me about Bad News Barrett is that when he left WWE, he got let go. He didn't go on the indie circuit. But I think the reason why he was let go is because he was injured. So he had a career-ending injury, and they didn't have anything for him anyways. So, so we had Roman Reigns ended up winning this match, and the only thing I can think of is that Brock Lesnar's coming back, and we're gonna see a Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. The next pay per view I believe coming up is Extreme Rules, and we're not going to see Lesnar on that pay per view. You're going to have something built up on either. You're going to have it built up on SmackDown. So that's the only thing I can think. Because having the two fight over Paul Heyman's services is not enough. And I can't remember if maybe somebody else in chat would know, but has Brock ever won the Universal Belt? I can't remember if he has. Gary, has Brock Lesnar ever won the Universal Belt? Yeah, the one person that I really wanted to see was Becky Lynch. Even John Cena teased that he might be making an appearance tonight. Oh, that's right. It's Backlash. WrestleMania Backlash too. They renamed it. But I don't think we would see Brock Lesnar on that show because it's not a big enough show. SummerSlam, now that they're having fans back, you know, and let's be honest about the fan thing. They announced the attendance last night as 25,000, and were they including the cardboard cutouts that were in the seats? I don't think there was 25,000 people there. Most of the seats that were off camera were cardboard cutouts, and the only fans that you could really see were the ones that were at ringside, maybe 10 rows back, if that. The rest of it was cardboard cutouts. So I don't think 25,000 or 25,000 fans were there. But you know what? Too, WWE has been known to exaggerate the fan attendance. They did that for WrestleMania 3. They said 93,000 people. There wasn't 93,000 people. Maybe 89,000 people, but not 93. I mean, there was a lot of people there, don't get me wrong. But they've been known to exaggerate the attendance levels. But you know what? The one thing that I will give WWE credit for is having that many fans back. You know, yeah, AEW's been doing it all along, pretty much. But on the big stage, you know, it's cool. It's cool that they had fans back, and, you know, it seems like we're coming to the end of this COVID thing, and, you know, which, by the way, I talked about last night, and I'll say it again. I went and got my first vaccination, and wasn't as bad as I thought, other than the sore arm and the headache. My wife had her second on Wednesday, and she had a fever and all that. She was sick as a dog the next day. So I'm expecting at least that for my second shot. So, all in all, WrestleMania as a whole was basically a glorified Raw. That was the term that I used with Husky Hero when we were texting back and forth that it was a glorified Raw. None of those matches that were on that show couldn't have been shown on either Raw or SmackDown, or could have been shown on Raw or SmackDown. So, but like I said at the beginning of the show, the biggest disappointment was the Fiend match. It was a bad match to start off the show with because their expectations were up there, and it just didn't set the tempo. You know, when you start a show, you want something that's going to be a heavily contested match, especially, you know, like for example, I want to say if they were to put Cesaro and Seth Rollins on first tonight, that would have set the tempo for the match, and I bet you that match probably would have went longer than it did yesterday tonight. So, which confuses me too, now that I'm thinking about it, is why do they have a time limit on their pay-per-views? If they're showing them on the network and they own the network, or at least they did own the network, why is there a time? Why does it have to be done at 11 or 11:15? They could go as long as they want, you know, unless they still have to take into account the pay-per-view providers, because I know the pay-per-view providers have a certain time slot that they have to go to, so that's probably the only thing I can think of. But you know, like I said, any match that took place on either night could have taken place on either a Raw or SmackDown, and it just didn't live up to Manias in the past. And, you know, so, all in all, maybe I'll give it one Ric Flair woo. And that's probably all I'll give it. And most of the matches had me saying,
What? What?
The one thing I am really interested in seeing is the Jericho interview. Although they've been playing snippets of it on YouTube, which I think is a mistake, and which seems like they're showing the entire interview. And they do talk about AEW. I did see that, and he talks about his favorite opponents, but most of it's his WWE career. I would guarantee that they're not going to talk about much AEW. I mean, it's mentioned. He mentions people by name like Sammy Guevara and all that type of stuff, but you know, I am looking forward to seeing it. I'm not going to see it tonight because my son has Zoom meetings tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I need to make sure I get myself up and moving. So, I'm watching it now. It's already dropped. Oh, really? Wow. Yeah, I heard it was supposed to drop after WrestleMania. But, you know, that's the other thing, too. Like, if you know, why not have that on, drop on a night to try to gain viewers? Like, don't do it on a Monday. Don't do it on a Tuesday. Drop it on a Wednesday. You know what? Drop it on a Wednesday during AEW. Who's going to be watching AEW and who's going to be watching Jericho and Stone Cold? You know, I'd probably be watching Jericho and Stone Cold. You know, the only advantage to having it on the network is that you can go back and watch it. But you can do that with AEW. You know, if you got DVR or any type of recording device, you can go back and watch it. So, you'd be watching both. So yeah, so like it would be like the back in the day when the Monday Night Wars were on, and I was watching both shows, flipping back and forth, or being in a bar and watching both. You know, the good old days. But yeah, you know, I'd have to say this. WrestleMania week wasn't like all the other WrestleMania weeks. So Husky Hero asks, put on your fantasy booker hat. What's next for Riddle, McIntyre, and Banks? Well, I already talked about Riddle. I believe he's going to be moved up to the WWE title picture. Vince is totally in love with his character. And the only thing I don't like about that is that he really just came off a feud with Bobby Lashley for the United States belt. So, do I think he's gonna? If he goes into a program with Bobby Lashley, I don't think he's gonna win the belt. But I do think he's gonna be a credible opponent for Lashley. As far as McIntyre, he can start back up, start another feud with Sheamus for the U.S. belt, move him back down to the mid card, and have him go against some of these mid card guys and build them up, and still gonna win occasionally here and there, and then move him back to the title picture come the end of this year or even Royal Rumble. You know, he could win the Royal Rumble and win a chance at the heavyweight belt again. And by that time, somebody else will have the belt. As far as Sasha Banks, you know, the funny thing about Sasha Banks, and we talked about this during the WrestleMania show, and that was that I thought Sasha Banks was gonna take her ball and go home. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think what you're probably gonna see is Becky Lynch come back, because if you remember correctly, the man thing started on SmackDown. So I think they're going to have Becky Lynch come back on SmackDown and get in a program with Sasha Banks to get her ready for the women's SmackDown title. Yeah. You know, we could see them bring up Io Shirai or move Sasha down to NXT. It's a big enough brand now. She could be moved down there. I honestly think if they were to move Io Shirai up, I think she would be more of a credible opponent for Rhea Ripley. Because they have that that former feud. It'd be nice to see Io versus Sasha, but I think she's more of a credible opponent for Rhea Ripley. And then, like, you still have Charlotte in the wings. You got Becky Lynch. You got Bayley, who found her way on the WrestleMania. Um, you know, they need to put the Iconics back together, like we talked about earlier, and have them go for the tag team belts. Because obviously, the singles push that they were planning on giving Peyton Royce either didn't work out, or they decided to give it to Billie Kay anyways, and she's not being pushed as a single. She's being pushed as a tag team. So if you're going to put her in a tag team, why not put her back with Peyton Royce, where the two work good off each other? So that's what I think. I think what's going to happen with the three of them. But I do think Becky Lynch needs to go to SmackDown and stay off of Raw. But you know what, too? Who is on Raw to challenge Rhea Ripley? Charlotte Flair? Seen it before. And everybody's going to expect Charlotte to win. So bringing up Io Shirai, that would be good. But who else? Who else is on Raw that can challenge for the women's belt? I don't see anybody other than Charlotte. So that's something to think about. But anyways, it is 12:30, guys. I appreciate everybody staying up with me. WrestleMania week is over. We can now start fresh. We will see, not hopefully, but we'll probably see some cuts, which means some wrestlers going out on the indies when the indies start back up after COVID is over. And maybe some of these guys going to New Japan and AEW. So WrestleMania week is over, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad it is, because this week has been pretty hectic, and yeah, everybody's in a tag team, you know. So, like I said, I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad WrestleMania week is over. Just so you guys know, WrestleMania week for me doesn't just encompass WWE. There's a ton of independent shows out there that I watch, and it's wrestling all the time pretty much during WrestleMania week. So it's wrestling all the time pretty much every week, but WrestleMania week is pretty hectic for me. So there's a lot of independent shows that I watched that just were terrible, and we're talking about guys that have appeared on AEW. I wanted to see what they would look like on the indie scene, and let's just say that these are guys that have wrestled on AEW, and you can tell when they're working in front of a crowd and when they're not. Right now, the indie scene is basically just, staff or other workers in the crowd. So other people that are working on the show, they're being the crowd. And it's different when you're working in front of fans. So you seem to be put on a better show. And I saw a lot of guys that have appeared on AEW, whether it's AEW Dark or Elevation, that just sucked this week. And if you're still here, you should check out the stuff that Atticus Kruger is doing on the independents. He's in a group called H2O with this is gonna sound funny, but Ricky Shane Page, Atticus Kruger, Gregory Iron is in there, and I think they're playing off the H Club that was in CZW. But you should check his indie stuff that he's doing. He's really become a star. Although most of the stuff he's doing is deathmatch. And which, by the way, talking about death matches, John Moxley appeared this week on GSW to I can't remember who he confronted, but it's the guy that's the big star for. Yeah, so then he's doing what he's supposed to do. That mask that he wears is pretty sick. First time I saw him in ESW with that mask, I was like, what the frig is this? It looked like, what was it? It looked like he was playing off Mankind. But, yeah. Actually, I did see it. And you know what? I thought Masada was gone, to be honest with you. I thought he was gone. And, yeah, Nick Gage. That's right. So John Moxley confronted Nick Gage, which is the king. He's basically the king of the death matches on the GSW or GCW, one of those. But, yeah, I did see it. And I'll tell you what makes me sick to my stomach watching those matches is when they pull out those spear things and they plug them into the person's head. That's just plain sick. Not to mention it's got to hurt their hand when they pound it in. Masada is famous for doing that. Now Atticus Kruger's doing it on the independents. You know, it's too bad too that guy, he's got to get himself involved in death matches, because I think he has a real talent. At least what I've seen in ESW, and like I said, it's too bad that he's got to go that route. But Ricky Shane Page is the same way. He's done tons of death matches in CZW, and Nick Gage was in CZW. So was Masada. Masada was in Ring of Honor for a little bit too. That's when he wasn't doing the deathmatch stuff too much. That's where I originally became familiar with Masada. Was Ring of Honor. So, yeah, Big Japan. You know what? There's a time and place for matches like that to take place, and let's hope AEW doesn't do them all that often. But I can't watch them because there's really, with being a traditional wrestling fan, it's just difficult to watch the death matches. And I had a hard time watching the Cactus Jack Terry Funk match with the exploding barbed wire. But that, like, King of the Death matches, that tournament that they had, that Cactus Jack and Terry Funk were in, even that is difficult to watch. I mean, you're talking about 4 hours worth of death matches and not having one single regular match on it. And that was a huge thing back in the 90s. That's where I originally became familiar with death matches. But that's here nor there. Anyways, so like I said, WrestleMania week is over. My next show is probably going to be Tuesday during the day. So I'm going to be reviewing Raw. Probably going to be making a decision over the next couple days whether I'm going to be sticking with the Peacock Network or canceling it because right now I have a lot on my plate when it comes to subscriptions. So I may focus mostly on New Japan and AEW for a little bit. And I still have another way that I can watch the WWE pay-per-views, even if I don't have the Peacock Network. But, so my next show is going to be on Tuesday. I know you're logging off, but Tony Khan has to lay off the low blow of the blow. I'm surprised Moxley can show up at GSW or Bloodsport. He's a face of AEW. Yeah, you know, he may have it in his contract that he can do that stuff. You're right about that. You're right about Tony Khan, though, because do you really want the face of your company showing up on an independent show and wrestling in a death match and then getting knocked out at Bloodsport? You know, I don't think that's good business. But, you know, more power for Moxley having that in his contract, being able to do that. I believe him and excuse me, him and Nick Gage are friends outside of wrestling. So he might have done it as a favor to Nick Gage, just to pop a rating or to get his company known. The Bloodsport thing, he was just he was in Josh Barnett's Bloodsport before, and he got a win, and then he lost to Josh Barnett. He got knocked out. Which, you know, you want to do MMA. I don't really watch Bloodsport at all. Excuse me. I don't really watch Bloodsport at all. And remind me never to do that again, because I just saw my bald spot on camera and it's not too good. There's a reason why I wear the hat most of the time when I'm out. Yeah, I don't watch much Bloodsport. So I don't watch much GSW either. Because of the reason being that because it's deathmatch stuff. I don't like the light tube garbage. So, but anyways, I'm gonna log off for tonight. I appreciate everybody joining me. Check out my socials on my my stream ending page. You can check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and obviously here on Twitch. And my next show will be on Tuesday, where I'm reviewing Raw. Hopefully it's a better show than WrestleMania. I doubt it, though. Not to really get down on it, but I'm not expecting a lot from Raw, because it's probably the worst show on television right now. It's not booked correctly. But that's here and there. So anyways, thank you guys for joining me. I do want to send some thanks out before I sign off. I want to thank Franchise for rating me tonight. I want to thank MLG is the best one for the follow, and Zippy's Birched 98 for the follow on Twitch. And I want to thank Johnny Prozrangan and TJ Wolf for the follow on Facebook. So we're getting there, guys. I'm almost close to my 50, and then I just have to work on my viewership, and I'll be affiliated with Twitch. So, but I'm not doing this for that. I'm doing it to have fun and talk wrestling, which I love to do. So I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight, and I will see everybody on Tuesday. Everybody have a good night.